Well, guys, we are back for another episode of the Liberal Asshole Show, episode 80. And what are today's topics?
US-Iran nuclear deal better explained. The old TERFs meltdown. Bolsonaro banned from running for president. Fuck SCOTUS in the arse. Book bans lead to Bible being banned. Mount Rushmore is a demon portal. And Tommy Tuberville's meltdown.
Oh boy, that's gonna be fun. Also, what do you want to talk about first?
Well, I guess we can start with US-Iran nuclear deal better explained.
Yeah, so we mentioned in the last episode that I saw randomly before we did the video that there was some sort of secret negotiations between America and Iran about getting back in the nuclear agreement and all that. However, we couldn't really talk about much because it was paywalled, and that was very unbased, all the sites that they did that to, so we couldn't figure out anything. But thankfully, like the next day after the video was up, TLDR, which we've covered in videos before, actually did a video on this. So now we get even more information that, isn't paywalled. Very irritating. Alright, so now let's go see what they have to say.
This video is brought to you by Brilliant. The issue of Iran's nuclear weapons program has been a point of contention in US politics for about 30 years now. Sanctions were first introduced by the Clinton administration in 1996, before being expanded by Bush in the 2000s and then scrapped by Obama in 2015 as part of his Iran nuclear deal, otherwise known as the JCPOA. Trump scrapped the agreement in 2018, but despite his best efforts, Biden has been unable to resuscitate it.
Best effort? He hasn't even really been trying.
Instead, however, Biden has apparently decided to negotiate a secret and unwritten mini-deal with Iran, which reports suggest is nearing completion. So in this video, we'll take a look at the history of Iran's nuclear program, Biden's new mini-deal, and whether it's actually a good idea.
Well, of course it's a good idea, but will it succeed is the question.
Exactly.
Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos. So to understand the story, we need to start with a bit of context about Iran's nuclear program. Iran actually had a nuclear industry before the 1979 revolution, which was supplied to the American allied Shah of Iran via the US's Atoms for Peace program. Atoms for Peace was an initiative spearheaded by President Eisenhower that basically offered developing countries American nuclear technology on the condition that they would only use the tech for peaceful purposes. But in the late 70s, American intelligence believed the Shah had started trying to develop weapons. When the Ayatollahs took over in 1979, they actually cancelled the nuclear program because they considered it un-Islamic. But after the Iran-Iraq war, they changed their mind, and the program was secretly restarted sometime in the mid-1980s. The Iranians maintained that their interest in nuclear technology was only about its energy-generating abilities. But no one really believed this, given Iran's vast natural hydrocarbon resources, and in 1996, the US sanctioned Iran. Things escalated in 2002, when an Iranian dissident group published confidential documents describing an advanced clandestine nuclear program. Iran was pressured into inspections from the International Atomic Energy Agency, who found traces of highly enriched uranium at the Natanz plant, and were unable to take samples at the Kalaye Electric Company. The IAEA concluded that Iran had violated the Non-Proliferation Treaty, and Iran subsequently agreed a deal with Britain, France and Germany, otherwise known as the EU3, to suspend all uranium enrichment. But it fell apart after hardliner Mohammad Ahmadinejad was elected president of Iran in 2005. The EU3 were then joined by the US, China and Russia to form a grouping known as the P5+1. But the P5+1 struggled to get Iran to agree to anything until the election of Obama, who had expressed an interest in negotiating with Iran and recalibrating America's role in the Middle East during his campaign. In 2013, after Ahmadinejad was replaced by the more moderate Hassan Rouhani, the US began secret talks with Iranian officials, which eventually culminated in the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, signed on July the 14th, 2015.
Awesome as hell when it was
Under
done.
the terms of the JCPOA, Iran gave up
It was so awesome that conservatives lied about it.
100% of its medium
Of course,
enriched
because
uranium
they're evil and they
the
want World
plan of
War
action.
III and a nuclear end to the world. and probably we secretly want to blow the Earth up.
Signed on July the 14th, 2015. Under the
How
terms
little? That's the 8th anniversary date for me, at least.
to the JCPOA, Iran gave up 100% of its medium-enriched uranium and 98% of low-enriched uranium in return for the lifting of basically all sanctions for 15 years. In practice, this meant that the time it would take for Iran to develop a nuke, the so-called breakout time, increased from about 4 months to somewhere between 8 to 12 months. In this sense, the deal wasn't...
I think Kyle covered it too, and I think he said they weren't going to be able to get anywhere near a nuclear weapon capability for like 10 years when it was signed. Well, that discrepancy is
so much about eliminating Iran's nuclear program, but managing it. Obama presumably hoped that Iran's re-entry into the international community would moderate its politics, opening the door to further cooperation. As you'd expect, the deal was pretty controversial with Washington, but also with America's allies in the Middle East.
Yeah,
Classified
Saudi
cables
Arabia and
leaked by
Israel
WikiLeaks in 2011
Of course they don't. They want World War III, and they want to be Israel wants to be able to fire their nukes into Iran, and Saudi Arabia's like in Saudi Arabia and Iran are currently in a nuclear arms race.
And Republicans wanted Obama to at least threaten military action in order to extract more concessions. Anyway, like many Republicans, Trump thought the deal was too soft and withdrew from it in 2018.
Yep,
when he came into
Trump
office,
ruined
Biden
everything,
tried to revive the deal,
course he
but
does.
negotiations have been slow, both because Russia has been trying to use JCPOA negotiations to dilute Western sanctions, and because of the election of hardliner Ebrahim Raisi last year. Things also haven't been helped by the fact that Iran already has a significant amount of 60% enriched uranium. While that's not as high as the 90% normally used in nuclear weapons, 60% is still high enough to make a bomb. At their most recent inspections, the IAEA found 84% enriched particles. While US intelligence doesn't think Iran is yet able to create a long-range nuclear missile, this would only apparently take them a couple of years to figure out. And even just a normal bomb would be pretty terrible news for obvious reasons. Anyway, negotiations on restarting the JCPOA apparently collapsed earlier this year over Russia's sanctions-related demands. So the US instead started secret negotiations with Iran on a new arrangement.
Remember that.
Which, according to various reports and comments by Iranian officials, is nearly done. The new agreement, which
Alright, so here we go, let's see the terms.
no one is calling a deal, will be secret and unwritten to avoid the political blowback that Obama experienced during the original JCPOA negotiations.
The problem, though, with it being unwritten is it's going to be even more easy to, like, renege on it, even more than Trump did.
Yeah.
So that's a big concern.
No one actually knows what's in it, but reports suggest that the US has agreed to lift some sanctions and to stop seizing sanctions-busting Iranian oil tankers in the Persian Gulf.
I don't recall... Oh, that's right, they did with Venezuela a few years ago.
Exchange, Iran has agreed to stop enriching uranium beyond 60%, to deeper collaborations with the IAEA, and to refrain from selling ballistic missiles to Russia.
That is very awesome. If anything, that seems more towards America than it really should be. So, let's see. Get rid of some of the sanctions. So not even get rid of all the sanctions that Trump did back in 2018. And stop seizing oil tankers. That's a fine one. No, like, reparations or anything that really Iran deserved for the last few years for what we did. In exchange, they had to cooperate more with IAEA. Awesome. Decrease enrichment to 60%. And refrains from selling missiles to Russia, which, hey, that's off from the Russo-Ukraine war, but I think but Iran's mostly giving them drones, so that's probably not going to make that much of a difference, unfortunately.
It has also agreed to stop using its proxies to attack US troops and contractors in Iraq. It has also agreed to stop using its proxies to attack US troops and contractors in Iraq and Syria.
And not have their proxies attack American troops in Iraq and Syria
and to release several American citizens detained by Iran over the last few years.
Prisoner swap sounds like too.
So, is this a good idea?
Yeah.
Well, Trump and other Republicans will tell you no, and insist
Because
that the
they want
US
war by
should
Iran.
use
Of course
maximum
they're
pressure
Yes, because they want-
to prevent
because they want
Iran
World
from
War
ever
III.
creating a nuclear bomb. Not just because there's a non-trivial chance of it falling into the hands of some non-state actor, but also because it'll set off a nuclear arms race in the Middle East, with Saudi Arabia.
There already
and
is
Israel.
one between Iran and
However,
Saudi
Biden and the
Arabia.
And I think we covered a while ago, Remember, Jared Kushner was corrupted by Saudi Arabia, and I think Trump too. And one of the concerns is that Saudi Arabia was bribing them to give them like nuclear secrets and stuff like that to possibly build nuclear weapons. Which is, if you're against Iran having nuclear weapons, you need to be even more against Saudi Arabia having them because they're actually jihadists,
Democrats
unlike
will point
Iran.
to the fact that
They're
Trump's
they're
maximum pressure
literal.
campaign didn't work.
Literally
Sure, the sanctions have crippled Iran's GDP, but the Ayatollahs
if
have
they
held on
get
to power
nuclear
by
weapons,
murdering
they will use them.
protesters.
They
And
don't
Iran has been
care.
able to fund
The
its
Saudi
nuclear
Arabian
program
government
via
is
oil
literally
exports,
the devil.
mostly to China, which have tripled in the past year to over 1.5 million barrels per day. If we pragmatically accept that Iran will be able to build a bomb, then the next best thing the US can do is reduce tensions in the region to make sure that it's never used. Ultimately, whether this deal lasts and the wider trajectory of US-Iran relations probably depends most on the 2024 presidential election. If Trump
Because it's
returns,
unwritten, so it's
it's
more
hard to
easier
see
to renege
US-Iran
than the
relations
treaty
going anywhere but
that
down
Yep.
for the next 4 years. Having just watched
And of course, it's also a little bit concerned too because Iran's president is a hardliner and he's going to be in it for another 2 years still. So they can also renege on from that perspective too.
Yep.
I think that's it for the video though. So yeah, it's sponsored content. So yeah, what do you have to say about that? Doesn't that deal sound awesome?
Yeah.
It sounds way more pro-American than I figured it would really honestly should be. But hey, it seems pretty damn good and hope it succeeds.
Yep.
And
Agree.
course-
Definitely agree.
And of course, fucking Republicans stop fucking around with this shit.
Stop fucking around and stop constantly calling for war. Republicans stop calling for World War III challenge impossible.
Especially remember with Soleimani a few years ago.
Yep.
Which
that pitched ISIS in the Arabian Peninsula against the Neo-Ottoman Empire.
The fact that
could you have imagined?
the fact that we killed Soleimani and they launched missiles at American base in Iraq did not lead to anything other than the unfortunate plane shot down. The fact that didn't lead to a war, we're lucky. Because next time, we might not be as lucky. So, just stop.
And remember that, and when I say World War III, don't forget that Iran is allied with China, and we're currently in the earliest stages of manufacturing consent for World War III over COVID-19.
Alright, so, I think we're done talking about this, so what's our next topic?
The next one is the old TERF's meltdown.
Oh my god, TYT had another meltdown recently. And once again, involving Anna.
It's TOF, remember?
What?
It's TOF. TOF, the old TERFs, remember?
TOF.
Yeah.
So yeah, once again, I covered this in the episode that you didn't show up on. Anna had another meltdown about trans people once again. Because remember back a few months ago, she was crying about, I don't want to be called a birthing person, stuff like that. Now they're crying about how, like, trans people progressives that supports trans rights are costing Democrats seats in elections and stuff like that. And other
anything,
really
it's the other way
crap.
around you. It's the other way around, you fucking TERF.
Yeah, they've shown studies of that, like Lance, Humanist Report, Leftist Mafia, and all them. We see the stat. When Democrats become more supportive of trans rights, they do better. Matter of fact, the Republicans being anti-trans rights so fervently is why they lost a lot last year, along with them being like so far, along with SCOTUS going so far on Roe v. Wade last year. Them being anti-trans rights.
3 Arrows
cost them
did a
their
video
elections.
about that.
What?
Yep, 3 Arrows did a video on that called Matt Walsh and Why Republicans Lost.
Yep, that was an awesome video too. So, no, it's the other way around. You guys are more likely to cost elections for progressives since you're willing to just suck up to whoever the Democratic nominee is, like you've done the last 2 times with Hillary and Biden, remember?
You shit-lib fuckheads.
Which is funny
King of the shit, then, like I said, TYT are not progressives, they're neolibs. They hate you if you're poor. They're neolibs and now they're TERFs as well, so they're actually, so this is another one that's sliding from progressive to Nazi. One that Bill Maher's almost completed. J.K. Rowling speed ran it. Sean's video. latest video goes over a lot. One of a couple of JQ Rowling's allies, and how they are, and how at least none of them are basically like about half a step away from being full Nazis.
But yeah, guys, it's you guys that are the problem. You've been
Yep.
pretty bad the last few years. Like, I've stopped largely watching TYT like back in 2015-16 because they did have an SJW phase and they were very cringe
Yep.
and stupid and all that. Then that phase went away, and now the last like year or so they've become even more right wing. Bad enough that you fervently support Hillary and Biden, even though you're in a deep blue state where it's not gonna matter. So you could support your conscience and vote for third party like I would. You go to even harder extreme, like remember like last year when Chank supported the Republican mayor in Los Angeles because they're
Yep.
tough on crime and all that.
Yep.
Like come on, dude. Oh my gosh. And then Anna had her meltdown twice now
Yep.
this year and all that. Like, it's just, you guys are just becoming right-wing pieces of shit. Like,
Yep.
oh my god. Like, even a Shank one with the mayor one. If you don't like the Democratic mayor, that's fine. Don't vote for them. But don't vote for the Republican one. They're worse.
Yeah, exactly.
You either vote for the Democrats, suck it up, like, which, hey, you did with Hillary and Biden, so I don't want to hear no excuses about it. You don't vote at all, or you vote for, like, a third-party person. But don't ever vote for the Republican candidates. They're evil. That's the ultimate no if you're progressive.
Yep.
Oh, my gosh.
Yep.
And then,
Yeah, but don't forget that, that, what was I going to say? I can't remember. Keep going.
And then, of course, there was a couple trans workers at TYT that actually left recently. One of them, I think, is a YouTuber now as well. So, yeah. You guys need to just stop. This is honestly, I'm starting to think it's like a grift. What do you think?
Yeah.
Like, grifting really hard to try and get neolibs and stuff like that. It's just pathetic. Oh, my God. So, yeah, what do you guys say about the old turfs raging in Malden like this now? Unbelievable. That's right. Since you missed last episode, the one episode where we talked about it, maybe you could talk about Anna's meltdown from a month ago. Finally.
Oh, jeez. Why the hell is a meltdown about this even a thing? It's like I'll be like, okay. I looked at the birthing person thing and I'm like, okay, that's cringe. Please don't. Moving on. And that's literally all I thought. That's literally all I thought.
So was it ever confirmed what she was mauling about the birthing person's thing? Because I think I covered that it was possibly like either someone told her that, or it's like some sort of like doctor document that you have to do when you're at doctor's. Like if it's that, like go cry me a river.
I think it's a hospital somewhere who's in like Minnesota or something who's using it, but that's about had like a document that would that told people to refer to them as birthing people,
like stuff you sign when you're at the hospital.
3 hospitals and that's it.
Like stuff that you write down like basic information, stuff like that. If that's the case, stop being a Karen. That's not a big deal. I support that being there. They're not forcing you to call yourself a birthing person. That the option is there for people who can give birth but aren't women, because there are trans individuals that haven't transitioned yet that can still get pregnant. It's not that hard to understand, you cunt. Oh my god, you're so stupid.
Exactly.
So yeah, we gotta see about this meltdown now recently.
No fucking surprise from the old turfs. I still don't know how they're getting views.
Maybe
How haven't they been booted off fucking YouTube or declared
as others have pointed out too?
Speak.
Haven't you noticed Dor, Tracy, Ruben? They've had piece of shit people join the network and then left. I wonder why. Maybe it's something wrong with the organization.
Hang on. Has anyone noticed that Dor and them have they're not like massively fallen away, but they seem to have fallen away a little. But they're not quite as
big,
prominent in your face as they were a few months ago. They seem to have fallen away a bit.
Oh yeah, funny enough too. I saw one of Dor's tweets the other day, and his profile picture on Twitter is "COVID lies are funny." You gotta say about COVID lies are funny. What the hell is that supposed to mean?
Fuck door. Jeez, you really... Dude, your CIA game is slipping.
Oh my gosh, that was just so weird. But yeah, TYT, you got to stop. You've been so bad for years. First, it's because you're SJW idiots. Then you were just sucking up to any Democrat possible without any sort of convictions. And now you're becoming right-wing turfs. Like, can you stop? Do you want to succeed? Because unfortunately, guys, TYT is still probably the biggest progressive now in quotes, network probably in the country. So their sway they have a lot of sway, unfortunately, and they're wasting like any opportunity. I mean, wasting any potential support they have from the progressives because they keep going so right-wing and all that. Just stop. Just stop. This is stupid. It's not worth fighting for. Anna, take the L and embrace trans rights already. Jeez.
Yes.
Alright. So, I think we're done melting down over TYT. So now, on to the next topic.
Bolsonaro banned from running for president. Yay!
Awesome! So yeah, guys, just recently, Bolsonaro, that piece of shit fascist who was president of Brazil a few years ago until, thankfully, Lula became president this January. Awesome still.
Yeah.
And of course, remember, like a week after Bolsonaro left, there was Brazil's equivalent of January 6th and all that. So yeah, the Brazil's Supreme Court banned Bolsonaro from running till 2030. So that means he can't run in 2026. Nice. I don't know if that means he can run in 2030 maybe and all that, but hopefully he'll be irrelevant by then. But yeah, he cannot run in 2026 because of all his election lies and coping very hard that Lula beat him. So yeah, let's see what Kyle has to say about this.
So this right here, guys, is a huge deal, if you ask me. And I think this goes to show you a pretty big difference between Brazil and the United States. So this is in the New York Times.
This is something that should have happened to Trump, too. Eat shit if you don't like hearing it. He should have been banned, for crying out loud, for doing January 6th.
Brazil bars Bolsonaro from office for election fraud claims. Brazil's electoral court banned former President Jair Bolsonaro from seeking office until 2030 for spreading false claims about the nation's voting system. So look, in many ways, this is super analogous to January 6th here in the U.S. And by the way, they had a very similar thing happen. You guys remember, we covered it. Very similar thing happened with the Brazilian government. I mean, it was astonishing, the parallels to January 6th here. So they say Brazilian election officials on Friday blocked former President Jair Bolsonaro from seeking public office until 2030, removing a top contender from the next presidential contest and dealing a significant blow to the country's far-right movement.
Good! Good! Right suffering is good for us.
Bolsonaro had violated Brazil's election laws when less than 3
I hope Lula being in office still triggers you immensely.
months ahead of last year's vote. He called diplomats to the presidential palace and made baseless claims that the nation's voting systems were likely to be rigged against him. 5 of the court's 7 judges voted that Mr. Bolsonaro had abused his power as president when he convened the meeting with diplomats and broadcast it on state television. Quote, "This response will confirm our faith in the democracy," said Alexander de Moraes, a Supreme Court justice who leads the electoral court, as he cast his vote against Mr. Bolsonaro. The decision is a sharp and swift rebuke of Mr. Bolsonaro and his efforts to undermine Brazil's elections. Just 6 months ago, Mr. Bolsonaro was president of one of the world's largest democracies. Now his career as a politician is in jeopardy. Under the ruling, Bolsonaro, 68, will next be able to run for president in 2030.
Okay, so he can run 2030.
By the way, if he's around, he might just do that. The next presidential election is scheduled for 2026. Mr. Bolsonaro said Friday that he was not surprised by the 5-2 decision, 5-2, because the court had always been against him. Quote, "Come on, we know that since I took office, they said I was going to carry out a coup," he told reporters.
You tried to!
You tried to! Had hinted at that possibility.
Come on!
This is not a democracy. His lawyers had argued that his speech to diplomats was an act of government aimed at raising legitimate concerns about election security. Mr. Bolsonaro appeared to accept his fate, saying Friday that he would focus on campaigning for other right-wing candidates. Yet he is still expected to appeal the ruling to Brazil's Supreme Court through that body.
It's still very weird how he acted like Biden throughout this. Not Biden. Acted like Trump this entire time. Yet he still acts like more accepting of it than Trump did. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
It's very
I remember
weird.
that.
maybe Trump, if you acted the way Bolsonaro did, maybe you wouldn't have had January 6th happen, and maybe you wouldn't have all these scandals afterwards, and maybe you would have a better chance instead of not
Though
the
he
odds right
acted
now.
aggressively to rein in his power during his presidency, he has harshly attacked the High Court for years, calling some justices terrorists and accusing them of trying to sway the vote against him. So,
What do you call your supporters that tried
crashing
to
and
attack your
burning.
capital?
And this is an example of
Yep.
actually having
An
consequences.
insurrection.
Right? Now,
I think
look,
Carl calls it a diet coup.
But they're good people. They're not insurrectionists, don't you know?
it would be a different story with Bolsonaro.
Well, realistically, I know what
if
they are. They're seditionists.
He did the election denialism, but nothing came about as a result of it, right? I think it'd be a different scenario if he just said some things, but there was no action accompanying those words. Because then you can make an argument, hey, it's free speech. He might be wrong, or he might even be lying, but you're allowed to just say stuff, right? That's not a crime. That's the whole point of the
he
First
handled
Amendment.
it better when he lost than Trump. Like, Trump would not shut up.
Yep.
Bolsonaro just, like, whatever, just accept it. And, of course, if it wasn't for, like, their equivalent to January 6th, maybe he would not be banned right now. I think that was, like, the final straw.
Yeah.
Like you could say, even if things
Yeah.
are wrong,
That's what
you're
I'm
allowed to
thinking.
say them, right? Like that's a basic
Trump,
freedom.
meanwhile,
it's a
won't
basic
shut
human
up.
right.
He's
or at the
still
very least
crying
it
about
should
it
be.
almost 3 years
But
later.
I think the issue,
Yep.
from my
People-
perspective at
he'll
least,
be
with-
crying. He'll be crying. His ghost will be crying 10 years after he dies.
Bolsonaro is that the talk
Crying
actually
like a gas, you mean?
did go hand in hand
Yep.
with actions, right? Like it did go hand in hand with their own version of a January 6th. And look, you effed around and you found out. So when you look at this,
Shows
my
that
immediate
Brazil's,
response
even
was
though
like,
Brazil's pretty much a piece of shit and comes in terms of institutional strength compared to America, they're still better than us in that regard. Oof, that's
Somehow,
pretty embarrassing.
yeah.
well, this
That's very
something
embarrassing.
akin to this absolutely should have been done vis-a-vis Trump after January 6th. Now, you might say, well, hold on now, Kyle. They have a different legal system, a different government. There's no way we can do something like that here. There's no, process by which you can go through to get to that desired outcome. But if you say that, I'd have to inform you, you are indeed incorrect. So, in our Constitution, 14th Amendment, equal protection and other rights, Section 3 is about disqualification from holding office. Interesting. Here's what they say. No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state who, having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or as a member of any state legislature or as an executive or judicial officer of any state to support the Constitution of the United States shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof.
6th.
But Congress
Yep.
may, by a vote of 2/3 of each house, remove such disability. So
Yeah,
in
of
other
course,
words,
we couldn't
and
get
this,
the vote,
guys,
that's
go
why
back
he
and look
was
at the commentary.
still
I
able
said this
Yep.
immediately
live
after
on.
January 6th, too. That I don't know if Trump actually broke any particular law. He was flirting with it. He was saying things that were super questionable and wrong
He
at
led to
best,
it, though,
lies at
Kyle, so
worst,
that's
but
enough for me.
Didn't
Yeah.
cross a line into any imminent calls for violence, etc. Right? He spoke out of both sides.
There were Trump supporters at January 6th that said that
Yep.
they felt like Trump was telling them to do what they did. That is enough for
Yep.
me that he did
His
it.
mouth on that day.
Exactly.
But what I did say is, it's not even a judicial process. It's a congressional process. It's a legislative process. If you can get 2/3 of Congress to say, we know what you did here. Yeah, it was a wink and a nod, and you tried to cover your tracks. But everybody knows what you did here. Everybody saw the speech where he said, you got to be strong, you got to take our country back with strength. You can't be weak. Everybody, let's march to the Capitol. That's what happened.
I remember when
he was also
Giuliani
trying
said,
to
let's have
prod
trial
Mike
by
Pence.
combat.
Hey man,
I remember
do the right
that.
thing.
Yep.
Throw out the results of the election. This is all on the record. Internally, his staffers were like, yeah, it was very obvious what was going on. He was sitting there watching it, hoping it would succeed on January 6th. And then eventually, after too much pressure, he went out there and said, all right, everybody go home. You're right, I love you, but you got to go home. So it was clear what happened, right? Anybody who's minimally honest and has eyes knows, yeah, we know what he wanted is the desired outcome, what he wanted to occur. Insurrection or rebellion is fair. Now, didn't it come anywhere close to working? That doesn't matter, right? There's still, the intent was there, and the actions were in place. So if at the time 2/3 of Congress said, you can't run for office again, you can't be president, you can't be senator, you can't be a congressman, no position of authority in the U.S. government, you can't do it. Because you violated the U.S. Constitution. 14th Amendment, Section 3. You violated it. You are now disqualified from office. Now, it would have required 2/3, which is very difficult to get, right? But I think that if the Republican Party, if the elected Republicans, I should be clear, if the Republican establishment knew back then what they know now, that Trump has got like 60% of the primary vote, he's almost certainly going to be their nominee, right? I think they would have been like, let's do it. There's enough establishment Republicans and enough of an acknowledgement how toxic he is for a general election when they lost the midterms massively and his handpicked candidates did the worst. I think they would do it to save their own political asses. Like, let's get him out of here. Let's get him off the table. Let's just end this nightmare so that we have a chance moving forward. I think they would have done it. And I think they would have been right to do it. But they didn't do it because they're weak. They're weak. They're scared of the power that he has with the base. And so they cuck themselves and they bend the knee repeatedly. But you would have had every single Democratic vote for this. Every one. And you would have needed some Republicans in order to get it done. They should have done it, man. They should have done it. Now, I wish there was also some sort of a procedure where you can ban him from office that's not legislative and congressional in nature. I wish there was something, either judicial or otherwise, no confidence type thing, whatever you want to call it. I wish there were certain things we could do vis-a-vis Dianne Feinstein, for example, who's literally like, her brain just doesn't function anymore. She has no business being...
Dianne Feinstein is already
I wish there was
dead.
something we could do about Donald Trump.
But freaking body's being animated by dark side magic.
The Jack Smith investigation, the Georgia
She died
investigation.
about
You could just
6
hope for the
months
best on that
ago.
front. But I think Brazil got it right. I think they got it right.
Yes, they did.
I think that in order to defend democracy, you need to make sure that the outright opponents of democracy, who would use democracy against itself to institute authoritarianism, you have to call a spade, right? And there's quotes of Jair Bolsonaro. We've covered them. Like, he says, like, I'm a fascist, or I'm an authoritarian, or I believe in a dictatorship. That's the proper form of government. It's like, okay, well, you mix that belief system with the fact that you really did try to get the ball moving, to keep your ass in power, to do your own January 6th. Okay, you messed around, and now you're going to find out. And so,
fuck around and find out.
Calling a spade and protecting democracy by taking off the field an enemy of democracy. I really don't think is that difficult of an issue. I think it's the right thing to do. I think there needs to be consequences for people who act in the way that he acted and the way Trump acted. But Trump seems to skirt accountability most of the time. But we'll see what happens with all the cases against him. But anyway, there you have it. Bolsonaro, out for 10 years. That's something.
You love it.
All right, guys.
You absolutely love it. So yeah, what do you guys say about the base news? That Bolsonaro's banned. That's what you get. Serve you
Fuck
right.
around and find out.
Now, hopefully, Trump will get the same treatment, which would be even more awesome. All right.
Exactly.
So now, off to the next topic.
That would be fuck SCOTUS. They're evil and evil.
Mm-hmm. As they've had 3 back-to-back shitty decisions they did recently. And this video from Mike, I think, only covers one of them. As the first one happened, because there was one and then there was like 2 back-to-back the same day. The first one is they restricted affirmative action recently, if you saw that. Which, now, the affirmative action one's really hard to explain. Of course, affirmative action helps people in disadvantaged positions help get a better shot to get like into university and stuff like that. Now conservatives, conservatives and racists too, let's be honest, outright lie about it, saying that it's used to help minorities fuck over white people to get into universities when they should be, whereas the white people easily can get in, and all that crap. Actually, the stats actually show that it's actually white women that benefit the most from affirmative action. Not even necessarily minorities and stuff like that. And I think the video actually is going to get into a little bit more detail about affirmative action, but it's not a good rule. And affirmative action is needed, but it needs to be more towards how much money you make, not necessarily your race or your sexual identity and stuff like that. Because poor people don't have easy ways to get into university or get good grades enough to get into universities. And if you want to fix poverty, unfortunately in this country, you gotta have some sort of college education. In order to get that, you have to get in there, and college is both very expensive and very hard to get into unless you have good grades. And guess who doesn't get good grades often? Poor people in high schools and stuff like that. So if you want to help fight poverty, they have to have an easier way to get in to universities. And it doesn't fuck over white people and all that crap. It's just stupid bullshit right-wing crap.
Exactly.
So yeah, that was really bad. Now, the next two ones, one was about student debt relief that they shut down that Biden tried to do last year, remember?
Yep, I remember that.
And another one is they effectively allowed discrimination for businesses against trans people and the LGBT.
Yep, I remember that.
So business can discriminate against the
all of them,
LGBT people.
Only that, they can they'll expand their fathers. They'll make it so that for interracial couples as well and things like that.
And of course, I remember conservatives acting like, "Oh, this is about just what the argument was." Well, first off, the funny thing is the LGBT one, that was the plaintiff or whatever was fake. Think about that, guys. It was fake. The person who did it was fake. They used a fake identity from someone else, a man in this situation, when the person that claimed it was a woman, all that. They used someone's identity for a fake case, and of course they got away with it. Like, what the fuck? That should have been instantly dismissed.
They're gonna keep doing that for they'll do that for interracial couples and other people. They'll do that for other groups.
Absolutely.
And
pathetic.
yes, that will include, for example, interracial couples.
Absolutely pathetic that they would get away with that, fake and stuff like that. So yeah, the argument is that, if I remember correctly, it was about, it was about art and stuff like that. Like, I believe this fake case was about a business that made like websites for people, and they didn't want to make sites that promoted like gay rights, stuff like that, because they didn't agree with it. It's not that we're discriminating against gay people, we just don't agree with the message, and we don't think we should be forced to do it and stuff like that. And of course, there actually was, because they never said specifically what is considered like art and stuff like that. So because of that, just recently, a few days ago, Mike covered a video of a hair salon bitch in Michigan
I saw that
discriminated against trans people, and she acted like a hardcore Karen over it. Gee, I hope you enjoy losing business from non-LGBT people as well, because we're not all bigots like you. So yeah, both discussed the decision. So now let's watch this crap. Pause.
Today, the Supreme Court announced 2 more decisions that demonstrate just how ideological and illegitimate they've become. And in a moment, you're going to see that I'm not just saying that because I'm angry, since both of these decisions affect me personally, but legally speaking, these cases make a mockery of the judiciary, and you're going to see why. So I
think Roe v. Wade honestly did that more last year than anything. Like, that was pretty... A
6-3 decision of Biden v. Nebraska, they struck down Biden's student loan forgiveness plan. So if you were one of the millions of individuals counting on $10,000 to $20,000 worth of student debt relief, and
I remember correctly when we covered, I think that was like up to like somewhere between 50 to 80% of Americans that would have benefited from that. Like, that's a huge positive.
Ruled that that's unconstitutional. Now, at the end of this video, I do have an update about what Biden decided to do in response to that. But before we get to that, we also have to talk about the other decision, the 6-3 decision of 303 Creative versus Elenis. And as Harvard Law's Alejandra Carballo put it, they made this legal now, literal discrimination against LGBTQ people by businesses. And she adds, there is literally no practical way for the court to distinguish the difference between saying, I won't design a site for gay couples and I don't design a site for interracial couples. This opens the door to legal racial discrimination. So today, this dangerous new precedent opens the door to a very...
in the South. Because we do have enough racist pieces of shit in there that will that are like, I'm not going to serve interracial couples because I'm against interracial marriage.
Gee,
how many of the actually, that's I'm curious. How many of the justices actually oppose interracial marriage? I'd imagine at least 3. I'm imagining it could even interracial marriage is like is potentially a 5-4 thing.
I wonder how these religious fundamentalists would feel if liberal businesses in the North would say, sorry, we don't like your kind, so no religious fundamentalist business for you. Sorry. I bet they would have a meltdown over it and act like, oh, we're oppressed. But when it's other people you don't like, it's okay.
Very scary and discriminatory world. But I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, because the first thing that you should know about this case is that it was based off of nothing. Literally. The business owner
like I just mentioned, guys, this is a fake case, and Mike's going to cover. It's fake.
The plaintiff wasn't even asked to serve a gay couple. That's right, because as Slate's Mark Joseph Stern explains, the case 303 Creative versus Elenis was manufactured by the Alliance Defending Freedom, a Christian law firm that opposes LGBTQ plus equality in all walks of life. 303 Creative is a for-profit Colorado business owned and operated by Lori Smith, who opposes same-sex marriage. No same-sex couple has ever tried to hire Lori Smith to create a website for their wedding. Represented by ADF, however, she filed a preemptive lawsuit demanding a First Amendment right to turn away any same-sex couple who request a wedding website. So the case is built entirely on hypotheticals, and there is no real record to speak of. Justice Neil Gorsuch's 6-3 opinion for the court got around this problem by insisting that Smith faces a, quote, credible threat of enforcement because Colorado acknowledges that it will enforce its civil rights law. He went on to declare that Colorado seeks to compel a speech Ms. Smith does not wish to provide.
It's not speech. You're providing a service to the community.
Exactly.
For fuck's sake. This almost sounds like stupid Citizens United. Corporations are people and all that. No, fuck off. If you're providing a service to the community, you serve everyone. Don't like it, don't get involved in business then, and you'll have to deal with it.
Speech that would be, quote, celebrating marriages, those of same-sex couples, of which she does not approve. The state insists that it would not compel Smith to actually design a wedding website, but merely to sell a pre-existing template to all customers. Gorsuch simply dismissed this claim while simultaneously criticizing the state for its ostensible eagerness to punish Smith and other anti-gay business owners. So let's pause right there and just let this sink in. This bigot wasn't even compelled to design a website, but yet the court was so eager to greenlight discrimination against gay couples that they agreed to pretend like the state wanted to compel her to design a gay wedding website when the state itself insisted that that was not the case. It is beyond comical that this is the decision that they reached and that they even took up this case to begin with, because again, they created a new precedent out of nothing, out of thin air. I mean, it's not the judiciary's duty to legislate, but that's effectively what they're doing here. This is judicial activism in its purest form. And what this does is it creates a First Amendment exemption so businesses cannot be compelled to creatively express messages in support of same-sex marriage if they don't agree with it. Now, Stern writes, in the words of Justice Sonia Sotomayor's dissent, the opinion is quite literally a notice that reads, some services may be denied to same-sex couples. Exactly. This is textbook discrimination concocted from a state law that wouldn't have even required compelled speech.
No blacks are allowed. Remember those good old signs in the South?
I remember that.
Oh, they would love to bring those signs
now,
back out.
Some of you might be saying, well, this isn't that bad since they can only deny some services to gay people, but this does...
Yeah, that hair salonist we just mentioned would like a word with you on that one.
Doesn't mean that they can straight up say that I'm not serving you because you're gay, but it's not really that simple, right? As HuffPost explains, civil rights groups are already raising the alarm in response to the broadness of the ruling. The court's decision opens the door to any business that claims to provide customized services to discriminate against historically marginalized groups. The decision is fundamentally misguided, the ACLU's legal director David Cole said in a statement. In other words, it's not that simple, and this is only the beginning. Perhaps a clothing store owner could say that selling women's clothing to a trans woman is tantamount to them being compelled to support trans people.
Here's the thing, too. How would you even know if someone is gay or trans unless they, like, say it or something like that? How would you know that? How can you physically tell who's trans and who's not? For all you know, I could be trans, but I look like a cis man. You don't know that. This is just bigotry.
Yep.
We assume they are. And by the way, I think I've even seen cases where this actually happened, where people assume someone was trans and they weren't and discriminated against them.
Yep.
Or them designing clothing for trans women is tantamount to them supporting something that they don't agree with.
It's not. It's just business and making money. Embrace capitalism, which you claim to be so fervently for.
Perhaps a food vendor can deny services for a gay wedding as well, because the creation of food can be maybe interpreted as an expressive art form, and by serving that gay couple, they feel like they're lending support to homosexuality. And in her dissent, Sotomayor brought up this very concern. She cited various examples of recent anti-gay discrimination, Stern continues, including a funeral home that refused to cremate and hold a memorial service for a gay man. Is a memorial service expressive conduct now, shielded by the Constitution? Perhaps so. And that's exactly the problem. Can a Subway sandwich artist say, I don't want to serve this gay couple because me creating this sandwich is a work of art, and I don't want to express support for homosexuality? You see, it's not so simple as to say,
no, seriously, the Subway people are called sandwich artists, at least in Australia.
That's weird.
It's limited discrimination. Once you open the door to discrimination, it's only going to lead to more discrimination. But let's assume for a moment that this is strictly limited.
And that's really ridiculous too. Like, why would you have a problem making a sandwich for someone who's trans? They want something to eat. What is there like any promotion to of LGBT rights in making a sandwich for someone? Like, come on.
Everything.
So desperate to just be bigoted.
Limited to artists, and it doesn't get twisted and manipulated.
Like I said, we'll be getting interracial. They'll be doing this to interracial couples before long.
Or expanded.
Remember,
by
once they're done with same-sex marriage, they're going to turn on. They're going to do it.
Period.
Do this to interracial.
If you deny service to a gay couple, that you would not deny to a straight couple.
They used to do this with opposing integration and interracial marriages. They were like, black people are groomers. Black people are this, that, and the other. They've done this. Playbook is from the 60s.
Are you kidding? It's even sooner than that.
Couple, that is textbook discrimination.
Like
so what should be the solution for this particular web designer if her worst nightmare comes to fruition? Well, if a gay couple asks her to design a wedding website for them, she doesn't have to do that, right? She can deny that service to the gay couple. But that means she also has to deny the same service to straight couples.
Which, hey, would be fair. And also, too, here's another thing, too. We've covered this before. Like, only half the states even have protections for the LGBT community. So, if you're in one of these states...
Of course they don't.
So, if you're in one of those states, you can legally do that and get away with it, no problem.
Yeah.
But now, of course, it sounds like Colorado is not one of those states, which is awesome, but...
There's probably one or two of... There's probably a few states who, secretly don't have it for, interracial couples either, like in Florida. Or, Texas,
same with
or maybe
bakers.
some
I mean,
of the
you don't
Midwest.
have to bake a gay couple a wedding cake, but then you also have to deny that same service to straight couples. I mean, imagine if a baker said that they only want to make a wedding cake for white couples and black couples, but not interracial couples because they're against racial mixing. I mean, that would obviously be discriminatory, right? So when you change the marginalized group in question, why is it suddenly acceptable behavior? If baking cakes for some couples is going to be an issue for you, then you simply have to refuse service to all couples to avoid discrimination. Wedding cakes cannot be a category of services that you offer if this is going to be a problem. But the court is saying, actually, discrimination is okay. It's okay. Go ahead. And Gorsuch, who wrote the majority opinion, bent over backwards to split hairs and justify discrimination here. But in Sotomayor's dissent, she highlighted how idiotic his logic is. Stern continues, Gorsuch in response tried to draw a line between discrimination based on status and discrimination based on message, claiming that the First Amendment only protects the latter. Smith, he concluded, was not discriminating against gay people because of their sexual orientation. She was refusing to express a message about sexual orientation that she does not believe. Free speech does not cover status-based discrimination unrelated to expression, he wrote, but it does, quote, protect a speaker's right to control her own message. That distinction favors Smith because she says she will serve gay clients, just not those who are getting married. Sotomayor replied, this logic would be amusing if it were not so embarrassing. Quipping that on Gorsuch's logic, a racist hotel could argue that black people may still rent rooms for their white friends. Right. And her dissent is incredible. Opening the door to discrimination obviously is a terrible idea. Not just for queer people, because guess what? It goes both ways. LGBTQ plus business owners now all of a sudden cannot be compelled to express creative support for heterosexuality or cisgender people, and presumably religion as well. So, good job, SCOTUS. Good job. But moving on.
I cannot wait to see discrimination against heterosexual couples. And
like I said, as I keep saying,
and then watch them cry and moan, and then act like what? When we do it, it's okay, but when you do it against us, it's not. How about it's both?
As I said, I'm waiting until the interracial couples come up.
So they also struck down Biden's student debt relief plan, saying that he overstepped his authority. And this entire case is, again, absurd because the plaintiff obviously did not have standing, but the court went out of their way to argue, actually, they definitely do have standing. So as Mark Joseph Stern explains, Chief Justice John Roberts' decision in Biden v. Nebraska blazed past a clearly insurmountable standing problem to scold the president for even trying to use the law according to its own plain terms in order to offer mass debt relief in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. He also chastised Justice Elena Kagan for her, quote, disturbing suggestion in dissent that the majority had gone beyond the proper role of the judiciary. The decision boils down to the Chief Justice's obvious disdain for student debt relief, which is perhaps why he interpreted Kagan's criticism as, in his words, a personal affront. The biggest question in the case was whether anyone could establish standing to challenge the program in the first place. After all, the federal government itself holds this debt, and no one is obviously injured by the government help.
Yeah, guys, remember, this was about federal student debt. The federal government, one like private institutions or something like that. This was the federal government that Biden was trying to get rid of student debt for, which he should obviously be able to do it just like that. No questions asked, since he is the commander-in-chief.
Helping somebody else by erasing their debt. In a separate case decided on Friday, the court unanimously held that two people who opposed the plan had no standing to sue. Missouri tried to get around this problem by fixating on Mohela, a corporation created by the state that services student loans. The Missouri Attorney General asserted that Mohela would suffer financially because of Biden's plan, which turns out to be false, and that the state itself could represent its interests in court. A key flaw in the reasoning is that Mohela is an independent entity from Missouri that could have sued to defend its own interest, but refused to do so, and even refused to help Missouri represent it in court.
When the group that supposedly would suffer from this has no interest in getting involved, can't you just take the L and let student debt just go already?
State officials had to file public records requests to obtain key information because Mohela did not want to participate in this case at all. Unbelievable. Roberts didn't care about any of that. Mohela is an instrumentality of Missouri, he wrote, and Biden's plan will cut Mohela's revenues, again, provably false. So according to Roberts and the court's 5 other hardline conservatives, the state had established standing. Oh, okay, they established standing. I see. Listen, if you get the feeling that they're just making stuff up as they go along, you'd be correct.
Like the fake
they're not adhering, contrary to popular belief. They're not
Guys, one case was fake. The other one, the supposed victim, didn't want anything to do with it, and yet they still went along with it. This should show how illegitimate SCOTUS is and why they need to all get replaced.
Adhering to a judicial philosophy, they're simply making a decision based on their own reactionary ideological views, and then they make up the legal rationale to justify their ruling. That's how this works. It's how it's always worked. But I mean, remember when conservatives said that they were against activist judges?
No, they agree with them.
It doesn't get any more activist than this, but it's okay so long as they're issuing decisions that Republicans agree with. So that's why I told you at the beginning of this video that this court has lost its legitimacy. It's not just sour grapes, because both of these decisions affect me as a gay dude with student debt that qualified for cancellation. Like I qualified for the 20K, and now I don't get that. Now discrimination is permissible against me. So it's not just that I'm angry, because I am. It's that they have no legitimacy, right? These decisions are legally hollow. But with that being said, this ruling is not surprising, and in response, Biden, he called out the hypocrisy of Republicans who supported PPP loan cancellation.
Remember this during COVID?
Yep.
So, hilarious. When PPP loans, which mostly benefit the rich, that's okay. But student loan debt for poor people? Oh no, so evil.
In a press conference where he talked about this decision, and he also made the following announcements.
First, I'm announcing today a new path consistent with today's ruling to provide student debt relief to as many borrowers as possible, as quickly as possible. We will ground this new approach in a different law than my original plan, the so-called Higher Education Act. That will allow Secretary Cardona, who's with me today, to compromise, waive, or release loans under certain circumstances. This new path is legally sound. It's going to take longer, But in my view, it's the best path that remains to providing for as many borrowers as possible with debt relief. I've directed my team to move as quickly as possible under the law. Just moments ago, Secretary Cardona took the first step to initiate that new approach. We're not going to waste any time on this. We're getting moving on it. It's going to take longer, but we're getting at it right away. Second, we know what many borrowers will need to make their hard choices, which their budgets are being strained now when they start to repay their monthly loan payments this fall. You know, we know that figuring out how to pay these added expenses can take time for borrowers, and they might miss payments at the front end as they get back into repayment. Normally, this could lead borrowers to fall into delinquency and default. But without their it will hurt their financial security, and that's not good for them or the economy. That's why we're creating a temporary 12-month, what we're calling on-ramp repayment program. Now, this is not the same as a student loan pause. It's been in effect for the past 3 years. Monthly payments will be due. Bills will not go out and interest will be accruing. And during this period, if you can pay your monthly bills, you should. But if you cannot, if you miss payments, this on-ramp will temporarily remove the threat of default or having your credit harmed, which can hurt borrowers for years to come. Because the Department of Education won't refer borrowers. And the reason why that will work, they won't refer borrowers who miss payments to credit agencies for 12 months to give them a chance to get back up and running.
So rather than using his authority under the HEROES Act, which is what he did originally, he is now pursuing debt cancellation through the Higher Education Act, which is good news. I just wish that he did this from the get-go, right? But regardless, we don't know how much he's planning to cancel, but this is the correct path. Now, he also announced a 12-month program, as you heard, whereby if you miss payments, you won't default. But here's the thing. They're going to strike this down again. It doesn't matter if you pursue the correct legal path, because there is no correct legal path for this rogue far-right Supreme Court. They will strike it down even if you have the legal authority under the Higher Education Act to cancel student debt. So what do? Well, you just cancel it all. If you create another means-tested program, you give Republicans the opportunity to legally block it by challenging it in the court. But if you just say, I'm canceling it all, you don't have to apply, it's done, sign your name on the executive order, and then you move on, they can't do shit about that. We know this because this is how student debt cancellation has gone before. Once it's canceled, you can't uncancel it. So if he's serious, he would cancel it all. But I don't think that that's going to be the case. But regardless, we'll have to wait and see. If he pursues $10,000 to $20,000 worth of cancellation under the Higher Education Act, that will be challenged as well. Will it be struck down? Probably so. Either way, we are basically fucked. And I just love how they announce the most unpopular opinions and then they duck out for the rest of the summer. They fuck off after they fucked us. It's just predictable, but this court doesn't care about you. It doesn't care about any of us. And this country is falling apart because these Republicans just refuse to help normal people. They only want to help large multinational corporations and billionaires.
And religious
because again, PPP loans, that's A-okay. Student debt relief for mostly people who make less than $90,000, $70,000 a year, unacceptable. That's how they feel about you.
So yeah, fuck SCOTUS. Gotta see about that.
Yep. They're evil, and they're evil. They love being murderers. Would actually murder women if they want to.
Mm-hmm. I mean, hey, they are leading women dying more likely because of Roe v. Wade being overturned, and we've covered it.
We're talking. Remember the Republican who came up with the brilliant idea of extrajudicial murder for women who are seeking abortions?
Mm-hmm. Because you covered it so many times last year, too. Absolutely pathetic. All right, so on to the next topic.
That would be book bans leading to the Bible getting banned. Yay! That was awesome.
I love when conservatives try to ban stuff that goes against them. So, of course, as we covered the last year or so, Republicans and idiot religious fundamentalists have been trying to ban books across the country because, they promote the awesome things of racial and gender equality, LGBT rights, and stuff like that, and that violently triggers them so much. So they're trying to do book bans across the country. And in Utah, they actually have it where books can be banned if they have like sexually explicit content on them and stuff like that. Well, guess what does have sexually explicit content? And guess who was smart to point out? The Bible! Ah!
Yep.
And what if I told you the Republican who supported the law is having a meltdown over it? Like, no, the Bible is not explicit. It should not be banned. It is. So cope, save, mauled. Fucking dumbass. This is awesome.
In late March, we talked about Ken Ivory, a Republican lawmaker from the state of Utah who authored legislation that would empower parents to challenge and potentially remove books from schools that they deemed inappropriate. Shortly after the governor signed his bill into law, however, one clever parent submitted a challenge to a book that he didn't want to be challenged. I'm, of course, talking about the Holy Bible, and this parent argued that the Bible was one of the most sex-ridden books around, containing incest, onanism, bestiality, prostitution, genital mutilation, fellatio, dildos, rape, and even infanticide. And this parent concluded by saying that this porn should be removed from schools. Now, because of this law, that parent's request had to be taken seriously, and it was. And in
we shouldn't even ban them at all, but if you're gonna do this crap, we're gonna make sure we're gonna get rid of all the actual sexually explicit content, and that includes the Bible.
Response to this request to remove the Bible from schools, Ken Ivory condemned that parent, even though he passed the law that enabled this challenge by saying, as LGBTQ Nation explains, that it was a political stunt to, quote, drain school resources.
That's you, buddy. That's you. Your whole stupid bill is retarded. And also, it's not a political stunt. The Bible is full of sexually explicit content and violent genocide stuff like that. I don't want any kid reading that crap, so go.
And added, for people to minimize that and to make a mockery of it, referring to his law, is very sad, he complained. In other words, when he sponsored legislation that would lead to books being banned in schools, he didn't intend for that book to be banned, only the ones that he doesn't like. But unfortunately for him, after a thorough review of the challenged material in question, the school district announced a decision that he definitely did not like. On June 2nd, the Davis School District announced that it would indeed be pulling the Bible from elementary and middle school shelves
due to vulgarity and violence. Yep, let's go.
To quote, vulgarity and violence. And just like that, his
conservative policies working against them, and then they mauled about it.
Book ban had completely backfired because the Bible was banned, and he did not anticipate that the outcome of his law would be that the Bible was banned. You love to see it. Now, his response to this news was absolutely hilarious because after his own law blew up in his face, he denied that it was the fault of his law that led to the Bible being banned, which is just demonstrably untrue. But at the same time, even though he claims that it's not his law's fault that the Bible was banned, he simultaneously called on lawmakers to revise his book ban in order to reverse the Bible ban. As AP explains, State Representative Ken Ivory, the Sensitive Materials Law's Republican sponsor, rebuffed the idea that his law paved the way for the Bible to be banned. Though he defended the review process after the sacred text removal, he said on Wednesday that the Davis School District had overstepped its role by removing the Bible from the middle and elementary schools because of criteria not in state law. Ivory urged the legislature to change the law so book removal decisions have to be overseen by elected officials at open public meetings, not the kind of committee that decided to remove the Bible from middle and elementary schools in the Davis School District. So
I got a better idea. How about we don't have book bans, period? If you want to have the Bible at school, go right ahead. But if they want to have books that talk about, like, pro-racial equality, LGBT rights, stuff like that, they're allowed too. How about that one?
The process works. Anyways, let's revise the process so that way something like this can't happen in the future. Sounds like mental gymnastics to me, Ken. Sounds like he doesn't want to admit that his censorious law came back to bite him in the ass, and that's really embarrassing. And that sounds like he was coping pretty hard to me. But it gets even better, because he admits that the Bible does have some adult themes in it, but that shouldn't justify it being pulled from school shelves. Listen.
Really?
Yes, the Bible is best taught at home that does not mean that the Bible should be, could be, must be removed from schools. That's a leap of logic that some have inappropriately made.
Hey Ken, have you considered that maybe you should apply that logic to other books? The Handmaid's Tale, any of the books about race or LGBTQ plus people that were removed? Why
about interracial couples?
Wait, they banned the Handmaid's Tale? Isn't that like a story about religious fundamentalism taking over America?
I think it's something like that.
Yeah, like
it's something like that.
Misogynistic and stuff like that. That seems a little weird. Why they'd ban it? That's what they want.
That set of standards, okay, for the Bible, but not other books. Yeah, it's just they're so hypocritical that they don't even care how hypocritical they sound. But he wasn't the only one who was coping hard after this decision, because parents lost their fucking minds and over 100 people showed up to protest at the state capitol following this decision. AP continues, concerned parents and children holding signs that read the Bible as the original textbook and remove poor, not the Bible, said they were outraged after the Davis School District announced that a review committee concluded the Bible was too violent or vulgar for young children.
Which it is.
Carly Vincent, a Davis County mother of
By
3
your own
kids,
logic is, so deal with it.
Carrying children's Bibles to the demonstration, said districts could weigh banning certain titles with controversial material, but not religious texts like the Bible. Carly, what?
Oh, wow. So religious texts, that's allowed, but certain titles with controversial material, that's okay. Even though the Bible is controversial with all the evil stuff that's in it. I like how desperate they are to get what they want.
What the fuck? Quote, we love the Bible, we love God, and we need God in our nation.
Separation of church and state.
Separation of church and state. Yep.
You can get what you want because we're a secular nation, so deal with it. And good on you if you love the Bible. Go read at home. It's banned from school, so deal with it. Unless you want to do the right thing and just remove the law and the Bible can go back, but all the other stuff that you hate also is allowed up there too.
Oh, okay, that sounds like a justification for keeping this violent pornographic book in schools. I don't know how to even respond to that, but I just have to say, Carly,
you're a Karen.
I don't understand. I don't understand your logic. Okay, there is no logic. That's why I can't understand it. See, according to her, banning controversial material is good only if it's controversial material that she doesn't like. But let me ask you this, Carly. Does this sound like content that's appropriate for elementary age students? Deuteronomy 25:11-12. Quote, if two men, a man and his countrymen, are struggling together, and the wife of one comes near to deliver her husband from the hand of the one who is striking him, and puts out her hand and seizes his genitals, then you shall cut off her hand. You shall not show pity. Does that sound like something that's appropriate for elementary school students? Do you think a first grader should hear that, Carly? How about this?
Yeah, I think one of the very first episodes of last, you even went over several verses in the Bible, remember?
Ezekiel 16:17. You also took the fine jewelry I gave you, and jewelry made of my gold and silver, and you made for yourself male idols and engaged in prostitution with them. They're talking about dildos, Carly. They're talking about a woman using dildos to masturbate. Do you think that that's appropriate for elementary age children? Really? You gave this book to all of your kids? What?
I wonder how they feel if we get to the verse that advocates for abortion, remember?
Yes, I have that one. I have that one saved.
Or how about genocide and warmongering, slavery and all that? Forced rape, forced marriage, and stuff like that. Oof, the Bible is full of very violent things. So yeah, by your own law's logic, the Bible should be banned, so deal with it.
Why do you want to sexualize kids, Carly? You sound like a groomer to me. In fact,
why do you want them to read stories about forced rape and on marriages and stuff like that? That seems very not nice for kids to know about.
All of these parents who showed up to protest the Bible being removed sounds like groomers. Why would you allow this pornographic material in schools when very clearly kids should not be subjected to this content? They shouldn't have access to
By your
stories
logic.
about women masturbating with dildos. Of course, the hypocrisy is going to be lost on them, but unfortunately in this instance, the groomers won because the book ban was recently reversed. As the Salt Lake Tribune explains, with the unanimous vote late Tuesday afternoon, members of Davis School District's Board of Education moved to return the religious text to library shelves for students of all ages. The highly anticipated reversal comes about 1 month after a review committee of staff and parents appointed by the district was initially determined that the Bible contained vulgarity or violence and should have access limited to just high schools. The district also released a statement saying that its policy was never intentionally manipulated to undermine Utah's sensitive materials law. It said the process played out as it was supposed to, and it noted reviews have been conducted on 60 challenged books, with 37 removed. Several members of the Board of Education said Tuesday that the Bible is personally important to them, and they are glad to see it on shelves again. Quote, "It is my firm opinion that the King James Version of the Bible is a historically significant, very important book of scripture with deep spiritual meaning for many people," said Bridget Gerard, the board's vice president. Okay, groomer, it's weird to me that you think that children should be reading about women masturbating with dildos or women getting their hands chopped off if they grab men's genitals, but whatever. Seems like you just think that kids should be sexualized. Despicable.
You want to groom
now,
kids,
the board
buddy.
also confirmed that they were forced to take requests to remove the Bible seriously, specifically because of the law that Ken Ivory authored, even if he denied the effect that that law had on the Bible being banned. They're saying here, nope, it was because of his law. Yeah. But regardless, you can see how quickly these book banners violated their own standards of what is and isn't appropriate for children because it came to material that they liked, even if there are literally depictions of bestiality and rape and sex and masturbation. They said, that's fine. Kids should be able to see that because we think it's okay. We think the deeper message here is more important than the pornographic content. Now, the legislature apparently did not heed Ivory's call for this law to be revised because guess what? We're not done yet, baby, because after receiving 2 requests from parents to challenge the Book of Mormon due to its portrayal of physical and sexual violence, that book is now officially being reviewed and may be pulled from school shelves.
Is that? Did they actually have their own Bible? Or is, when I think of the Book of Mormon, I think of South Park. Remember? They're on play.
Yep.
Oh,
next. Honestly, bravo to the parents in this district because they are absolutely clever. These parents, even if they are trying to weaponize this law against Republicans by using malicious compliance as a tactic, they have a point, right? If these lawmakers said that sexual content is inappropriate for kids, then why do you make exceptions for holy books? Is sexual content bad or is it not bad? I mean, if you're consistent, you would conclude that either all of it's okay or none of it's okay. But when you're a Christian supremacist or a religious fundamentalist of any kind in this country, you aren't necessarily wrong to think that the world revolves around you because we have lawmakers who constantly kowtow to this space of people who have one standard for themselves and a different standard for everyone else. See, a book about queer kids or any LGBTQ plus related content is grooming and sexualizing children, but the Bible, well, that's not grooming and sexualizing children, even if it has things that they say are inappropriate when it's in other books, because fuck you. That's why. They don't care, right? Now, even if the Book of Mormon is banned next, it's probably going to be unbanned just like the Bible, but that doesn't make their hypocritical seething and coping any less hilarious. And I, for one, recommend that all parents across the country challenge these book bans in this very way. Actually challenge the holy books in states with book bans because using their own bigotry against them by going after religion, that is one really important tool that we have in the fight against censorship. So I absolutely love that Ken Ivory has been thoroughly exposed and his own law led to the Bible being banned and possibly the Book of Mormon being banned. But is that going to get him to rethink his political positions and his own hypocrisy? Of course not, because in the world of Republican politics, hypocrisy isn't a thing that applies to them. Only liberals, only leftists. So, if book bans affect him in a negative way, that's not going to change his overall stance. It's not going to get him to be more logically consistent. It's just going to lead to him crying and getting what he wants, because that's what leads to victories for Christians in this country. So either way, I think the story is absolutely hilarious, and I will continue to follow these book bans where they are challenged in this hilarious way.
Absolutely piece of shit of them. So yeah, what do you guys say about that? Wasn't that hilarious or what?
Oh, it always is.
Yep. So how about this? Stop banning books and stop being Karens because you're offended about books for no reason, and deal with it. And then you wouldn't have to have your laws come back to bite you and ban the Bible and all that. It's not a big deal. Stop banning books, you Karen cunts. All right.
Exactly.
So now, on to the next topic.
Oh, that would be... Mount Rushmore is a demon portal, apparently.
I swear we keep finding stupid people each time. I can't believe I'm seeing some idiot conservative cunt cry about Mount Rushmore. It's always leftists that cry about it because it's stolen Native American land, but now this? Oh boy, this takes the cake. So yeah, guys, Mount Rushmore is a demonic portal that's bringing communism to America. How? Why? I don't know, but we're gonna have to find out and die laughing.
The other day, we were covering a wild podcast where Alex Jones said his Hollywood friends were getting attacked by shadow demons at night, and they were scratching up their chests and things of that nature. And, you know, you hear that and you go, goodness gracious, this man needs Thorazine. He needs antipsychotic medication. What is wrong with him? This is wild. And by the way, when he was making those arguments, there was no pushback around him. Nobody was like, really? Shadow demon attacks of your friends? And by the way, what else did Alex say? I can't tell you who they are. I can't tell you. Well, how convenient. The most ridiculous, absurd stories anybody's heard. And you're like, well, I can't tell you who it was. Come on now, guys. Well, anyway, it's not just Alex Jones. It is also some Republican politicians. So here we go. This is in Political Wire. GOP lawmaker says Mount Rushmore is a demonic portal. If we were to play the game that Republicans play all the time, it's like, well, that sounds really unpatriotic. Why do you hate America? Are you going to say the Lincoln Monument is possessed next? Like, what is wrong with these people? A South Dakota State Representative, Joe Donnell, the most, like, generic name of all time, said on a radio show that Mount Rushmore was a demonic portal spreading communism across the country. Here's what he said, quote, even Donald Trump's landing in the Black Hills at Mount Rushmore on July 4th when the governor... Kristi Noem put the message out that fireworks are returning to South Dakota. That was a prophetic word. And I kind of got the feeling that what we're really dealing with in that portal was communism. That witchcraft altar, and those things that are happening in the Black Hills.
Yeah, I know,
what
right?
we're dealing with is
That's
communism.
super confusing.
It's the ideology and all the demonic entities and spirits behind that. Now, you might hear me say all this and go, that's so insane. How do we know it's real? Well, this is how you know it's real.
The Lord revealed to me is that this Mount Rushmore has a direct ley line to Washington, D.C. And he said basically that as we continue to work in prayer and do the work of the ministry, that God was going to break that connection. Because it's like, in order to understand the spiritual realm and what we're facing, we have to realize that in order for the enemy to do anything, he needs the agreement of human beings. Like, in order to be empowered to do more damage, he needs the agreement of human beings. And oftentimes that comes in the form of an altar, an active altar that acts as a portal for demonic things. And so that's what we're dealing with. And people that are into that are brought into it because they think they're doing good. Some of them, they think they're doing the right thing. And then we have all kinds of people that are trying to get into native practices, New Age religion. And that's like a hotbed for all that. And so when I go into the Black Hills, I really have to prepare myself because there's a lot of stuff going on. But I just know that God is doing something. Even Donald Trump's landing in the Black Hills at Mount Rushmore, July 4th, when the Governor Kristi Noem put the message out that fireworks are returning to South Dakota, that was a prophetic word. And God spoke to me. He said, when Donald Trump steps foot on this territory, he said, there's something that's going to be done as far as the Constitution being upheld. It's going to bring a breakthrough with the Constitution. And I kind of got the feeling that what we're really dealing with in that portal is communism. That witchcraft altar and those things that are happening in the Black Hills is what we're really dealing with is communism. It's the ideology and all the demonic entities and spirits behind it.
Demonic.
When I see a clip like this, I get despondent. I just get really sad. Because, like, I look at our lawmakers and I'm like, well, gee, I hope they're working to get people higher wages. I hope they're working to get people health care. I hope they're trying to get people some paid vacation time by law. Like,
nope. They're talking about demonic portals.
They're working on social policy to increase their level of freedom, so to legalize marijuana or things of that nature. And, like, look at how far away we are from that being the focus of our politicians. Look at how far away we are. We got a babbling moron who says that Mount Rushmore is a demonic portal brought about by witchcraft to bring communism.
Like, when you hear these people, you gotta just laugh.
Where on earth do they get this stuff from? Because look...
And the problem is, too, this is a GOP lawmaker. So they're a Republican in power. It's not like just some random idiot online. People like these need to not have any power whatsoever.
I don't even know how many you know this, but most communists are ardent atheists. You know, it was Karl Marx who said that religion is the opiate of the masses, right? He was like anti-religion. And most communists are totally atheistic. So they don't believe not just in a god, but also in demons and things of that nature. And here he's out there saying, like, the demonic portal brought about by witchcraft of Mount Rushmore, they're trying to usher in communism through that. As if what? Like, number one, like, we have organized communists in this country. Number two, like, they're doing sorcery to bring about communism. Number three, what are the chances he could even define what communism is? What are the chances he could do that?
Something I don't like.
He can't define communism. He can't define socialism.
Yep,
how in any
that's
way, shape,
exactly
or form
what it always
would this
is.
stuff make it so that the workers own the means of production?
Man.
These things are totally unrelated.
Yep.
I don't even know how to respond to these people anymore, man. I don't even know how to respond to these people.
You laugh at them like I did?
The idea that we even have any elected communists in this country is laughable. There's not a...
No, Kyle. Biden is a communist, don't you know? Every single demon rat is a communist and all that.
Single politician that I know of
everything
who's
that
actual
isn't
communist. Even the ones that they would point to, like the furthest left, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders, they are social democrats. They believe in a Scandinavian-style system where you have a hybrid of capitalism and socialism, and you just give people health care and education and a better social safety net and shorter work hours. They have a better, work-leisure balance. That's all these people want to do. And instead we get Mount Rushmore is a demonic portal brought about by witchcraft to usher in communism. I kind of wish that the left was as powerful as this guy makes the left out to be. Right?
God, I'd love if we were.
Plot, this plan to do sorcery at Mount Rushmore to usher in communism. Bro, we can't even, like, get a petition signed by enough people. You think we're, like, super villains who are organizing, using sorcery to usher in communism? And, like, how would that work? We like, cast a spell by Mount Rushmore, and then we wake up the next day and, like, poof, would you look at that? We are fully communist. Like, what are you talking about? Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Anyway, look, I'm struggling because I have a lot of faith and confidence in my ability to deconvert people, to spread my ideology and my ideas and my philosophy. I think I can be a pretty convincing guy. But I am powerless in front of a man like this. Because we are like 7 layers deep of idiocy. Like, I can get through 1 or 2 layers of idiocy, right? I could provide the argumentation and the reasoning and the vibes to deconvert from that. But when we're like 7 layers deep on idiocy, I don't know how to get through to you. I don't know how to get through to you. There are no sorcerers. There is no witchcraft. There are no demons. Mount Rushmore is not a portal, and nobody's trying to usher in communism. And by the way, even if they were...
It's just rock.
It wouldn't get
It's all
anywhere.
Mount Rushmore is just rock.
I mean, we don't even have, like, center-left ideas that get somewhere. Never mind communist ideas. Jesus Christ. All right. You guys get the gist of it, but I really wish that it wasn't the case that we have absolutely psychotic state politicians who believe psychotic things, because there's no captain of the ship, man. This is the blind leading the blind all day long. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and...
oh, my gosh. So, yeah, what do you guys say about that?
That's
demonic.
nuts.
Mount Rushmore is a demonic portal for communism and witchcraft and all that. Like, gosh, you guys, all you idiots on the right, stop electing these people. They're stupid. You can't watch what we just watched and go, yeah, that's a smart person. They're stupid.
Yep.
Just stop. Because all you conservatives are brain dead. All right.
Yep.
So now, on to the next topic.
So the final topic, Tommy Tuberville's meltdown.
Oh, boy. Tommy Tuberville actually made defense for white nationalists in America's military. Yeah, so, yeah, it's one of those stupid people we have to deal with. Another racist old man, who is also, unfortunately, a senator, I think.
Do you believe they should allow white nationalists in the military?
Well, they call them that. I call them American.
What?
White nationalists are Americans.
You just listened to Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville defend white nationalists in the U.S. military, which is a serious problem for those unaware, and it's a problem that has been officially acknowledged by the Biden administration, the Department of Defense, and even military personnel themselves. According to a Military Times poll, 1/3 of active duty members saw signs of racism and or white supremacy in their ranks. So as a U.S. Senator, if your response to that problem is, well, you know, you call them white nationalists, I just call them Americans, I think that it's reasonable for people to interpret that as a defense of white nationalists in the U.S. military, as a defense of white nationalists in general. But in response to that, I guess we'll call it yikes comments, he was asked to clarify his comments, and you could say that we definitely have more clarity now after listening to him speak more. But it's not because he changed what he said. He said the same exact thing, but let's listen.
Do you want to explain those comments, Senator?
Yeah, first of all, I'm totally against any type of racism, okay? I was a football coach for 40 years, and I dealt and had opportunity to be around more minorities than anybody up here on this hill. But when our military has been attacked, was being attacked after 9/11, after January the 6th, and that was my first day on the Senate floor, I thought it was outrageous of what senators from the Democratic side, Chuck Schumer said on the floor that night, calling out people, calling people racist, calling people nationalists, white nationalists. White nationalists is just another word that they want to use other than racism. I'm totally against anything to do with racism, but the thing about being a white nationalist is just a cover word for the Democrats now, where they can use it to try to make people mad across the country. Identity politics. I'm totally against that. But I'm for the American people. I'm for military. I'm for Christian conservatives, Democrats, whoever wants to be in the military to fight for this country, to protect this country. That's what it's all about.
But just to be clear, you agree that white nationalists should not be serving in the U.S. military. Is that what you're saying?
If people think that a white nationalist is a racist, I agree with that. I agree they should.
A white nationalist is someone who believes that the white race is superior to other races.
Well, that's some people's opinion, and I don't think. I mean, a lot.
You dummy.
Pardon?
Yeah. What's your opinion?
My opinion of a white nationalist, if somebody wants to call him a white nationalist, to me is an American. It's an American. Now, if that white nationalist is a racist, I'm totally against anything that they want to do, because I am 110% against racism. But I want somebody that's...
No, you're not.
Here's a good test. If you claim to be anti-racism as you claim to be, then when you have the option to remove all white nationalists from the U.S. Army, it's a simple yes. You do that. You purge them out. It's it's not, they're Americans. That's their point of view on white nationalism. No, you just get rid of them and discuss
It's in our military that's strong, that believes in this country. That's an American that will fight along anybody, whether it's a man or woman, black or white, red, it doesn't make any difference. And so I'm totally against identity politics. I think it's ruining this country, and I think that Democrats ought to be ashamed for how they're doing this, because it's dividing this country and it's making this country weaker every day.
Dividing there's more, but let's making it weaker to call white nationalists.
Just stop there because we need to parse this out a little bit because he's saying a lot. So what he's saying is, if a white nationalist, whose default position, by the way, is that the white race is superior to all other races, happens to be racist, then that's bad. But so long as the white nationalist is not racist, then that's okay. I mean, what's next? Are libs going to say that everyone in the KKK is racist too? Is everyone not safe from this identity politics? I can't even say it with a straight face because what he's saying here is so absurd on its face that there's no way that you can be any more charitable than just deducing that he's racist. Period. Now, I'm also, I'm very relieved to know that he's personally not racist, with the evidence being that he was around minorities as a football coach. Well, that's definitive. There's nothing else that you can say about it after that. That, to me, confirms beyond a shadow of a doubt that he's not racist because, as we all know, by definition, when you're within the proximity of non-white people, racism is literally dispelled from your body at a rate of 1% per hour. But you see, the main problem is that he is against identity politics. So that's really what this is all about. The problem is that white nationalism is identity politics. It's just white identity politics. So the question is, should the military allow for that type of white identity politics, knowing that it could cause internal turmoil? Well, he's not going to be very clear about that, but amid the wishy-washiness and evasive answers, what he's saying does come into focus, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. One more short clip from this interview.
But that's not identity politics. You said a white nationalist is an American.
It is identity politics.
You said a white nationalist is an American, but a white nationalist is someone who believes horrific things. Do you really think that's someone who should be serving in the military?
Well, that's just a name that has been given. I mean,
it's not. It's a real definition. There's real concerns about extremism.
So if you're going to do away with most white people in this country out of the military, we got huge problems.
It's not.
Did you just say that most whites in America are white nationalists?
Wow.
Maybe it's. I think you just revealed something about you, maybe, because I don't think most whites in America are white nationalists.
It's not people who are white. It's white nationalists
that have a few probably different beliefs.
Right?
That have different beliefs. Now, if racism is one of those beliefs, I'm totally against it. I am totally against.
God, the white nationalism is racism. Oh my God,
exactly.
Racism. But
there's a lot of people that believe in different things.
Is racist, Senator?
Well, that's your opinion. That's your opinion. But if it's racism, it's racism, I'm totally against it. I am totally against any type of racism.
Yeah, sure.
Any type of racism. I don't care what it's in.
So he concedes that maybe white nationalists have a few different beliefs, but he won't say what those beliefs are specifically and whether or not he agrees with them. And I think that that's on purpose. So what is he actually trying to say, right? Because he's racist.
Deflection.
That's pretty clear, but he doesn't want to just come out and say it, right? So it seems like what he's trying to say is, no. Racism means that you just hate minorities. But being a white nationalist means that you have a love of and preference for white people and think that they should have their own ethno-state, but you can have that belief simultaneously while not hating minorities. I mean, is that what he's trying to say? Because if that is indeed the case, to think that non-white people should be excluded from government, from your ethno-state, that is inherently hateful, but it's hard to get into the mind of this hateful bigot. And what he's saying sounds contradictory and like we're splitting hairs because, I mean, we are. Internally, I'm sure that he's probably much more clear, right? But this sort of muddying of the waters is an effort by racists like him to normalize white nationalism and white supremacy. And the thing is that by him not being clear, he's giving us a clear answer, right? You just have to kind of read between the lines. If he wanted to be more clear, he would have done that by now. But he's not being more clear. He was asked the same question again, and his answer did not change. So we're going to watch that, along with some commentary from CNN. And I think that their commentary here is important, because I think that it's necessary for commentators to make deductions, because the audience might not necessarily connect, from point A to B, but just make that leap for them, because it's pretty obvious. We have more than enough evidence.
Explain why you continue to insist that white nationalists are American.
Listen, I'm totally against racism. And if the Democrats want to say that white nationalists are racist, I'm totally against that too.
But that's not a Democratic definition. The definition of a white nationalist
well, that's
is someone...
your definition. My definition is racism bad.
Next question. The definition is that the belief that the white race is superior to all other races.
Totally out of the question.
So do you believe that white nationalists are racist?
Yes. If that's what a racist is, yes. Thank you.
But that is the definition.
And he just continues to double down. And the fallout on Capitol Hill from Republicans is now that many Republicans are being asked by reporters, are white nationalists racist? And I talked to several Republicans, including Rick Scott of Florida, who said absolutely, that is the definition of a white nationalist, that they believe that the white race is superior to other races. You also heard from John Thune, who I spoke to just moments ago. He is the Republican whip, and he was pressed by reporters whether or not he was going to talk directly to Tuberville about his comments. He said he had no idea what Tuberville was actually trying to say. He said, just to be clear, though, there is no room for white nationalists in the Republican Party. I pressed him on whether or not there was room for white nationalists in the military. He said, no, not there either, making it clear that he wants to put this to bed. He does not want this to become a broader question of whether or not Republicans are sticking with white nationalists. Sarah?
Yeah, hard to put it to bed when you keep getting those same answers from Tuberville. Thank you so much, Lauren Fox, for that update. Appreciate it.
Why do you think it is so hard for Senator Tuberville to be clear about that?
So it's interesting and good to see you, but here's what's happening. So if you listen to the full interview, for somebody that claims to be very clear spoken, and I'm just going to tell you how I feel, he is twisting his words around to please everybody.
So we see a lot of speculation from pundits about why he won't just be clear here, why there is so much obfuscation and evasiveness with everything that he says, and they seem almost shocked that he's doubling and tripling down despite the backlash and condemnation even from fellow Republicans. And I think that all of this confusion is because they don't want to accept the answer that he's giving them. He's doubling down because this is what he believes. He's racist, period, point blank. And I get that they don't want to come out and say that because he's going to accuse them of engaging in identity politics. But I mean, sometimes you've just got to call a spade. And he's given you more than enough insight into his twisted worldview to logically deduce that he is indeed racist. And it's not the first time, to be clear, that he's made racist comments. And when you take into account the totality of his belief system that we know of, then I think the conclusion is pretty clear. And to his credit, Jake Tapper comes to this point.
Senator Tuberville's attempt to distance himself from seeming to be standing up for the rights of white supremacists might be easier to believe if last fall Senator Tuberville had not made one of the most blatantly racist statements we've heard from a U.S. senator in perhaps decades. He falsely suggested that Democrats like crime, and he smeared black people as criminals. Take a listen.
Some people say, well, they're soft on crime. No, they're not soft on crime. They're pro-crime. They want crime. They want crime because they want to take over what you got. They want to control what you have. They want reparation because they think the people that do the crime are owed that. Bullshit. They are not owed that.
Senator Tuberville there saying that Democrats like crime and they want
crime,
reparations, which is the term
apparently.
Payments made to individuals who are descendants of slaves.
And we want reparations?
Because they think that people that do the crime are owed that. That's just racism.
It's just racism. Exactly.
Ignorant,
and the reason why Republicans, including Mitch McConnell, are denouncing his comments is because overt racism is still not acceptable even by the Republican establishment, even if they're racist themselves or are okay with racists, even if a large portion of the base is thirsty for racism. The reason why you have to still use dog whistles and doublespeak when you are engaging in white identity politics is to maintain this facade of respectability in order to attract donations from large multinational corporations. They don't want any controversy for donating to white nationalist politicians, so it is incredibly strategic and savvy for Republicans to try to hide the ball a little bit. But when it comes to Tommy Tuberville, I mean, he's just saying the quiet part loud, and that's not acceptable. That's not lucrative, if we put it in capitalistic terms. So I think that we're not uncharitable to call Tuberville a racist. In fact, if anything, I think that people saying he's not racist would offend him, because we all heard him. His feelings are pretty clear, right? Now, I would be remiss to not point out the other reason why he's been grabbing headlines lately. It's not just because of this comment. It's because of his opposition to abortion and specifically what he's doing to cut off access to more people. HuffPost explains, Senator Tommy Tuberville's unprecedented hold on military promotions has left the Marine Corps without a confirmed leader for the first time in 164 years, drawing outrage from Democrats who say his actions are undermining national security. Marine Corps Commandant General...
Republicans undermine national security? I thought it's only Democrats that do that.
General David Berger officially retired on Monday, leaving Assistant Commandant General Eric Smith as the acting commandant and leader of the military branch until he is confirmed in the Senate. Democrats tried to confirm Smith via a unanimous consent request on Monday, but Tuberville blocked the move in protest of a new Pentagon policy that provides paid leave and reimbursement costs for travel for service members who cross state lines to get an abortion. The policy was enacted after the Supreme Court struck down federal abortion rights and overturned Roe v. Wade. The Alabama Republicans' hold pertains to over 250 of the Pentagon's general and flag officers. In order to approve each promotion, Democrats would need to schedule several votes on the Senate floor, eating up valuable floor time. It would likely take months to process them all, time the Senate simply does not have if it wants to pass appropriation bills and avert a government shutdown this year. So there you have it. If you've been wondering why he's talking about the military so much lately or has been asked so many questions about it, that's basically the backstory, and you really don't need to know more than that. But the main conclusion that I want to leave you with is that when people tell you who they are, believe them, especially if they tell you a second time and then a third time and then a fourth time. I mean, there's no point in speculating about whether or not they're confused or just unable to articulate themselves properly. Tuberville is a grown man. He is a politician, right? He knows how to speak. You can't chalk this up to stupidity or ignorance. He made it very clear where he stands, and that's with white nationalists. And he's not the only Republican senator, to be clear, who's a white nationalist. But the difference between him and them is that he's willing to admit it. So when people tell you that they are a certain way, listen to them, because I don't think he could be any more clear despite the very convoluted language that he's using.
He isn't really that clear to a lot of people, so that is just not going to be convincing. Like, a lot of people, they really do need to be like, I'm a white nationalist, like, openly say that. Like, all this, like...
Yeah, and even then, some people will be like, no, he's not a white nationalist.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, you got to realize that that's not as simple as you think. But, yeah, what do you got to say about his meltdown? And pretty much admitting that he's a white nationalist.
No surprise. Yes, he's basically admitted he's an anti-democratic terrorist, so get rid of him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was Alabama. Get rid of this senator, wherever state he's from. You need to get rid of people. And likewise, get rid of all the white nationalists in America's army.
Get rid of them everywhere.
Mm-hmm. They need to be politically irrelevant because they are evil. All right.
Yep.
So I think that is all the topics. So yeah, see you guys next time for episode 81.
See you guys then.